All right, based upon information provided at a hearing earlier today, the court finds that the defendant's next witness will not testify unless these proceedings are closed to the public. Regardless of the reasons provided by the witness for requesting closure, the court finds the defendant has a need for the testimony of this witness to be heard by the penalty phase jury in support of the defendant's mitigation case. The court further finds that the witness will refuse to testify unless the proceedings are closed. Because this is a death penalty sentencing trial, the court finds that closing the courtroom so that this witness will testify is necessary to further the administration of justice. The defendant has an overriding and compelling interest in presenting mitigation evidence from this witness, and that interest will be prejudiced if the courtroom is not closed so that the witness will testify. The closure of the courtroom for the testimony of this witness is no broader than necessary to protect the defendant's interest in providing mitigation evidence for the penalty phase jury. The court has considered and suggested other alternatives to closing the courtroom. However, the witness has refused to participate unless the courtroom is closed during his or her testimony. It is ordered closing the courtroom for the testimony of this witness. The family of the victim may remain in the courtroom for the testimony. The testimony of the witness will be video recorded by FTR. The court will consider unsealing the testimony of this witness or a redacted portion of that testimony after the jury has reached a verdict. All right.
And, Your Honor, for clarity, is this also inclusive of the remote viewing room as well?
Yes. The proceedings are closed. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, my name is Chris Meeser of Ballard's Bar on behalf of Phoenix Newspapers, KBNX,
Yes.
KBHO.
Yes.
Your Honor, my clients object to the closure, would ask that you put those findings in writing. I also would ask the court, will a transcript of that testimony be made available immediately upon the ending of that proceeding, or when will a transcript be made available?
That is something that I will need to discuss with the attorneys. There was not an order closing those proceedings, but I will hear from the attorneys before I make a ruling on that issue. With regard to the written ruling with regard to the court's decision, you can obtain a copy of that from the court reporter.
Your Honor, I would just like to state on the record that because this next portion of this criminal proceeding is closed, the public and the press have a presumptive First Amendment right under the Constitution, under the Arizona Constitution, which says that justice shall be administered openly, to attend this hearing, to be present while this witness testifies. The First Amendment requires that the court make a transcript of that proceeding available as soon as possible. We would urge the court to do it immediately upon adjournment of that hearing. Finally, we just ask the court to reconsider its ruling because of the important nature of this case and the fact that there's such a heavy presumption that the criminal court proceedings are conducted in public in the full light of day.
Yes, I am aware of the First Amendment implications. This was not an easy decision. I thought about it over the lunch hour, and my decision is final. You certainly may take my decision up on appeal, and I assume that you intend to do so because you're ordering a transcript.
Your Honor, one other question. Can you provide the identity of the witness that will testify?
No, not at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
May we approach?
You may. Mr. Nermi, are you going to have Ms. Arias come to the witness stand? So there isn't any issue with regard to...
My understanding is she wanted to walk up.
Okay, can you do it without
Yeah, I think
your restraint showing?
I think so, yeah.
Why don't you stand up so that we can see?
Well, I'll be standing when the jury comes in, so.
Okay, so why don't you walk out and let us see if anything is
sure.
visible. Okay, just walk right. No, we're just going to have you walk around and just stand here to be sworn. Okay, is there anything visible? Anyone see anything?
She looked like she had a problem with one of her legs, so I would object to her walking in front of the jury. I'm asking that she be allowed to stand there when the jury comes in and she be sworn from there, and then let you testify from there.
Mr. Nermi?
Your Honor, I think she's, I don't know if there's any law specifically on this issue, but I don't agree with Mr. Martinez's assessment, and I believe that she could have the right to walk to the witness stand like any other witness.
Well, if as a result of her request to do so, something should happen and the jury does see a restraint, then she's waiving any issue with regard to that by insisting upon walking across the courtroom. So if you want to agree that she waives any issue with regard to that, should she choose to walk across the courtroom, then I will allow her to do that. Other than that, I think it is safer for her to be standing in the witness stand when the jury comes in. Your preference.
My understanding is that she wants to walk up there. So.
And Judge Schender, I think the case is carry on, but I wouldn't swear to it. I'm trying to think back, but I believe that this issue involves a fundamental right that may not be waived. So.
Well, I think you can, but
Okay.
Ms. Arias, is there some reason why you don't want to just be standing there when the jury comes in? Is there something you want to discuss with your attorneys? I think it's safer if you just proceed from there.
Well, there is a reason, and I've discussed it.
That's enough, Judge. I'd prefer her not to speak about it.
You have discussed it with your attorneys. Okay, walk again. Let's see you walk one more time. Okay, I don't see anything that indicates that she's got a restraint, so I think it's fine. All right, let's bring in the jury.
In the case I was citing, it's Fabio Gomez, not carry on.
I'm sorry, give
The case I was citing was Fabio Gomez, not carry on. I was wrong about the name.
Okay, do you want me to look it up quickly?
If you don't mind, because in that case, the
Yeah,
defendant
look it
should
up.
represent himself, and then
That's a relatively recent case. Let me just look it up. It is a lengthy case. I didn't see anything in there about that issue. The issues were change of counsel, propriety of the death sentence,
It went up twice, I think.
mitigating circumstances.
Judge, it would have been the finding before that.
Okay. That was the Arizona Supreme Court case, so there was a second Arizona Supreme Court case on it?
Right.
Okay. Okay, I have it. All right, I just keep finding the same case, same issues.
Well, my memory may
Is
be
it not the
faulty, so-
2012 opinion, it was something prior to that? Would it have been,
I remember reading it, and I remember the facts of the case were that he chose to represent himself.
Correct.
One of the things that happened was there was an inadvertent viewing of one of the items that was holding him back, and the court found that that was reason enough to send the case back. And since he chose to stand, it was sort of a waiver in my view, and even though it was a waiver, the court still sent it back. But I don't remember anything else about it other than that.
okay. All right, since the defendant is not providing a reason for her request to walk across the courtroom, and because the state has some concerns that it could be fundamental error if there is an inadvertent citing of the security brace, then I'm going to require Ms. Arias to come and stand in the jury, or in the witness box while the jury comes in.
And Judge, I know that I interrupted Ms. Arias when you were asking her, but her reasoning for wanting to walk to the witness box, witness stand herself, is so that she looks like any other witness would look. Every other witness has walked in, got sworn in, and taken the witness stand in front of the jury. And that's her reasoning.
Okay. Well, I understand that reasoning, but it's slightly different. We're going to tell the jury that the proceeding is closed, and so I don't think they're going to draw any negative inference from that. It has not been unusual. For example, Detective Flores has been on the witness stand when they've come in the past, so I don't think they will think anything of it. So, Ms. Arias, come on up and stand in the witness box, please. Hold on one moment. You were partially correct. In State versus Gomez, 211 Arizona 494, a 2005 Arizona Supreme Court case, the court vacated a death sentence and remanded for resentencing. In that case, the defendant represented himself and elected to wear prison garb during the aggravation and penalty phases of the trial. Over his objection, the trial court ordered the defendant shackled during these phases because shackling of all defendants in prison garb was required by jail policy. The Supreme Court stated that prior opinions prohibit such routine shackling and found the record failed to show a case-specific reason to shackle the defendant, resulting in reversible error. So that is the case that you were talking about, and it was from 2005, not 2012. All right, so we're going to proceed. Let's bring in the jury.
All right.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience with us. I have closed the proceedings for the next portion of the trial. The family members of the victim are permitted by law to be present at all proceedings. The defense may call its first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Ms. Jodi Arias.
Arias, please stand to be sworn.
Can you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Jodi, A-R-R-A-S.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. You may proceed.
Thank you. Could you tell us your name again, please?
Jodi Arias.
And Jodi, have you already been convicted of killing Travis Alexander?
Yes.
And did you kill Travis Alexander?
Yes.
When is the first time that you admitted that to anyone?
In 2010?
And this happened in 2008, didn't it?
Yes.
Why did it take you 2 years to admit that you did it?
It took me that long to be able to admit to myself that I did it.
Why did it take you that long to admit it to yourself?
Because what I did was so horrific that I could never have imagined myself doing that to another human being.
And did that make it difficult for you to even think about it yourself?
Yes.
You were present this morning when Ms. Sorensen and Mr. Alexander spoke to the jury, weren't you?
Yes.
And did you listen to what they had to say?
Yes.
What do you think of when you hear what they had to say?
Objection, relevance.
Litigation.
Overruled.
I think that when I hear that, if I could do, I wish so badly that I could just take that away from them and that I could reverse what I did and that I could take away what all these people are feeling that I've hurt, including Travis.
You were here the other day also, right, when we sat here and watched your interviews with Detective Flores?
Yes.
In those interviews, were you being truthful about your participation or what you did to Travis?
No.
Why weren't you being truthful about that?
Objection, lack of foundation. Which time?
Sustained.
During all the interviews with Detective Flores?
Anything surrounding my having to do with Travis dying, I was not truthful about that.
Why?
Well, again, it was something that I was years from being able to even coming around to admitting to myself that I did something that horrible. also I'd never been in trouble with the law. I was very lost. I didn't really know how to act or what to do.
When you look at yourself in those videos, what do you think about yourself?
It's revolting. I look at that, I just think how stupid I was. I was lost. I think of what just those lies put so many people through. And I just wish I could, well, there are a lot of things I wish I could do over again, but that's just one of them.
We know that you then made a phone call to Mr. Alexander's voicemail, right?
Yes.
And that was just after June 4th, after you left his house. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was still on June 4th. It was right around that. It was at night.
And in that phone call, were you truthful in that phone call? That voicemail that you left for Mr. Alexander?
No.
Why did you do that?
By the time I made the phone call, I realized that I had done something very bad. I couldn't remember details, but I knew I had a very heavy feeling, and I knew that I had done something very bad. So that phone call was the beginning of when I started to try to cover my tracks.
When you listen to your voice on that phone call, what do you think of yourself?
Well, I'm talking very fast, I'm nervous. I remember I was at the Hoover Dam, I remember that phone call. And I remember how many tries it took to get the recording right so that I sounded normal. And I just think that was something I shouldn't have done. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do.
And after that phone call, did you drive up to go see somebody, Ryan Burns?
Yes,
And was Mr. Burns somebody that, was he expecting you?
he was.
And after you did this bad thing, why did you continue on to go to Mr. Burns?
Well, after driving some more, my impulse was to go home, but a lot of people in Utah were expecting me, and I thought, if I don't go to Utah, everyone is going to wonder. And so my intention was to go to Utah and just pretty much say hi and bye and not even stay for an entire day and then just leave at that point.
At that point, were you trying to cover up what had happened?
Yeah, at that point, I was trying to act normal as I could manage, and, just trying to act like I had never been to Arizona and just trying to cover up.
At that point, why is it that you couldn't say something to somebody, that you couldn't say what really happened?
Something like that, I know who I am and who I've been my whole life, and for these few minutes out of my whole life, I was somebody that I wasn't, and I couldn't even face that. It's completely discordant with how I lived my whole life, and I couldn't even wrap my mind around the fact that I did that. It's still hard to imagine because just who I know that I am. And I think that's why it just took me so long to finally be able to say, yeah, I did that.
And before Detective Flores, even before you were arrested, did you call Detective Flores? Did you start calling him?
I did.
And were you here when you listened to those phone calls of you talking to him?
Yes.
What do you think of yourself when you listen to yourself in those phone calls?
Again, just how stupid I was. I didn't know what to do. It wasn't even a thought of mine to call him at first. I didn't even realize that was an option. My friend Leslie in Utah called me and told me that a lot of people were saying things about me after after Travis was found. And she believed in my innocence, and she said, urged me to call him and clear this up and straighten it out. And I thought, oh, you know what, maybe I should do that.
Did you do that then? Is that?
That was my,
what you called?
yeah, that was my attempt, more attempt to cover up what I had done.
We also heard that you sent flowers to Mr. Alexander's grandmother. Did you ever meet her, Mr. Alexander's grandmother?
Yes, I met her on 3 occasions.
And did you send flowers to her after you killed Mr. Alexander?
I did.
Why would you do that? Was that some kind of thing to make her hurt more?
No, definitely not.
Why?
She was the only family member that I knew that I'd ever met. And thinking about her and the pain she was going through, I didn't know what to do. Like, it seemed to me more insensitive to not reach out to her at all. And I realize now, I mean, I'm 6 years removed from that, and I see now how insensitive that was. But that, at the time, I just felt like if I do nothing, that's worse. I didn't know what to do, so I did that.
What about, did you go to his memorial?
I
Mr.
did.
Alexander's memorial?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Again, the memorial, separate from the funeral, the memorial was where a bunch of friends gathered. And these were all people that I knew, people that knew I was close to Travis. And since I was in this mode of trying to cover up and trying to act like I had nothing to do with that, I knew that by not showing up, it would look more suspicious. So I showed up and I tried to act as normal as I could.
You were obviously here when Dr. Horn testified, right?
Yes.
And did you see the pictures?
Yes.
And you saw the pictures of the way Mr. Alexander was found?
Yes.
Jodi, I'm showing you exhibit number 683. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Why do you recognize that photo?
I took it. I took it in the loft of his house.
And when you saw it being played this morning, what goes through your mind when you see this photo?
That was nearly a year before he died, and I think back on that time, and I just can't believe that things ended up the way they did. He was, my mind freezes up when I think back on that. There was a whole series of photos, and he was playing with his dog. I remember it very clearly, and I was sitting on the love sack.
Does it remind you of the good times that you had with Mr. Alexander?
Yes. It takes me right back to that day. That was a difficult time during our relationship, but that was a good day.
And when you see the pictures that were taken after he died, and you see the number of stab wounds that there were, how do you feel about that when you see that?
Again, I think that this is somebody that I cared about, and I caused that pain. And those were his last moments, and it makes me sick. And I wish so badly that I could just do that whole day over again.
When you
I
look at
think-
those pictures, do you think about, is that something that you thought you would ever have done?
No. Well, as I was saying, my whole life I considered myself somebody who isn't. I know who I am. I know who I was, and I did that, and that's not who I am. But I did that, And I can't, it's so hard to reconcile the two because I just can't, it's so hard to believe that I did do it. And it's hard. I wish so much that that day never happened.
Jodi, I want to talk to you a little bit about who you were, okay? You've been telling us that you know who you were. And so let's talk a little bit about who that was, okay? Tell me, where were you born?
I was born in Salinas, California,
And when were you born?
July 9th, 1980.
So does that make you 34 now?
Yes.
And were you just about 28 when you were 27 years old when you killed Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Who are your parents?
My parents' names are Bill and Sandy Arias.
And where do they live? Are they married?
They are.
And where do they live?
They are living in Wairika. My mom is living here during the trial, and my dad is.
Is that in California?
Yes.
Do you have grandparents who are living?
Yes. I have two. Both of my grandmothers are living.
And where do they live?
My maternal grandmother lives in Wairika also, and my dad's mom lives in Idaho.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your siblings. Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Where are you? Are you in the line of siblings?
Well, I have an older half-sister from my dad's previous marriage. She's 5 years older than I am. And then I'm the first of my parents.
Okay.
And then
do you have a younger sibling then?
I do. I have 3 younger siblings.
And who's that? Who's the first one?
My brother Carl came 2 years after I did. My sister Angela was born when I was 11. And my youngest brother Joseph, or Joey, he was born when I was 13.
So is there quite a bit of difference between you and Joni and Angela?
Yes.
11 to 13 years?
Right, yes.
So did you have time when you were growing up? Did you spend time with your brother Carl?
Yes, we played a lot.
Did you have coach?
Yes.
I'm showing you exhibit number 688. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I do.
Is that a picture of you and your brother?
Yes.
Which I would move for admission of 688.
Any objection?
No.
688 is admitted.
Is that a picture of you and your brother playing?
Yes.
What kinds of things? You said you were born in Salinas. Did you live there for a while?
Yes.
How long?
Till I was like a month from turning 12. So I was 11, but almost 12.
Okay, so most of your time in Salinas was that spent with you and your younger brother Carl?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what life was like in Salinas. What kinds of things did you do?
Well, in Salinas, when I was younger, my brother and I played. This house was in a cul-de-sac, so we had friends in the cul-de-sac. We played a lot. We rode bikes. We roller skated. We went on trips. We had a huge backyard, pets.
And is this a picture of one of the times? Did you used to build forts in your living room? Things
We
like
did.
that?
We took furniture and blankets and made forts and things and played all day. This was probably on Saturday morning. We weren't in school.
And at that point in time in your life, were you close with your brother Carl?
Yes.
And were you close with your mom and dad?
Yes.
And just me and Coach?
You may.
Is that picture I'm showing you exhibit number 689?
Yes.
This is another picture of your brother and Carl. I'm sorry, you and your brother?
Yes.
Move for admission of 689.
Any objection?
No.
689 is admitted.
Is that a picture then, Jodi, of you and your younger brother?
Yes.
Do you have fond memories of that time, the early years in Salinas with your younger brother?
I do.
And is this a picture of something that evokes those types of memories for you?
Yes.
In Salinas, was there a time when your memories changed as far as positive memories of your childhood?
There is, yes.
When is that?
It wasn't one defining moment, but around age 7, things began to change in my household.
Tell me what changed.
My parents' discipline grew a lot
I'm sorry.
more. I'm sorry. My parents, their discipline became more severe.
In what way did it become more severe?
Well, my mom began to carry a wooden spoon around in her purse, and wherever we were, whether it was at home or out somewhere, if we were misbehaving, she would just pull it out and whack us with it. My dad began to use a belt on my brother and I. Emotionally, my mom became a little bit more distant at that point, a little bit, I hate to say meaner, but she was meaner. I don't know how else to say it.
Tell us a little bit about, you said your mom had a wooden spoon,
She did.
and did she hit both you and Carl?
Yes. She actually broke it on Carl one time.
Do you have a specific memory of being hit with a spoon?
Yeah, I do. Several.
Do you remember what you felt or how it made you feel when your mom hit you?
Yes, physically it's extremely painful. My skin welts up. But emotionally, it made me angry because
Why did it make you angry?
well, she's my mom, and I love my mom, and my mom says she loves me, and I understand I'm not a perfect child and I might be misbehaving, but here she is just whacking the hell out of me, and it hurts so bad. And sometimes, we squirm when we were getting hit because we don't like to get hit. So when we would squirm, she would just give up on trying to hit our butts, and she'd just start hitting anywhere she could land it, and that hurt.
And that hurt physically?
It hurt physically, and it made me mad at her, pretty mad, yeah.
And other than being mad, did it hurt you emotionally?
Yeah, it hurt me emotionally as well, because she's my mom. She's this person in my life who has been loving and nurturing and my whole life, and it wasn't overnight, but she just began to get angrier and more severe in the way she disciplined us.
And what was happening then at this point in time when your parents started getting into this type of behavior? What was happening with your relationship with your parents?
Well, I think there was a wedge growing between us, especially my mom and I. There was a wedge that was starting, and it was growing a little bit more every time. My dad and I think there became a wedge as well, but that grew a little bit when I became a little bit closer to my teen years.
Were you close to your dad when you were younger? As close to your dad as you were with your mom?
When I was very young, I remember like at 2 years old, he would bounce me on his knee and kiss me, and his face was scratchy. And he would tell me, "I love you to pieces." He always says that. He used to say that a lot to me.
And did that change as well? And after you were 7 and after the discipline started turning into beatings?
Yes, my dad worked a lot, so he wasn't around much. He was in the household, but he was gone a lot of the day. So we weren't as close anymore.
And you said that your father, did he use a belt for his discipline?
Yes.
And did he use that belt on you?
Yes.
And did he also use that on Carl?
Yes.
What about as far as his voice? Did he ever raise his voice to you or things like that?
Oh yeah, he would scream pretty loudly in my face, like his spittle would get on me. He was screaming so forcefully.
And do you have specific memories of that?
I do.
You said you lived in Salinas up until about age 11, right before you turned 12.
Right.
So where did you go after Salinas?
We moved to Santa Maria, California.
And in Santa Maria, what grade were you going into?
I was going into 6th grade. Carl was going into 5th grade.
Okay. Did you obviously have to start over at a new house? I mean, a new school?
Yes, we did.
Right. And how was that, going into a new school in 6th grade?
Well, when my parents first announced we were moving, it was awful. I was very sad. I have lots of friends in Salinas, and it was scary going to a new school, people I didn't know.
Were you able to make friends?
Yes, I did.
And did you spend your middle school years in Santa Maria?
I did, yes.
And is that up till 8th grade?
Yes.
What was happening between your mom and your dad at that time, as far as your household is concerned? How was their relationship? What were you viewing?
Well, my dad was always, my dad could be very complimentary toward my mom and loving toward her. But at the same time, he could also be very critical and say demeaning things toward her. So it was.
Did you see your dad do that to your mom?
I did.
And did you see your dad demean her in front of you?
Yeah, he mostly would demean her about her weight.
Okay. Was that something that he used to pick on her about?
He did.
And what did you see as far as how your mom handled that? What did she do?
She normally she didn't really say anything. She wouldn't cower, but she would just not say much. I mean, sometimes my dad put a picture of her on the refrigerator when she was thinner, so every time she'd go to the refrigerator, she would see that. And she would take it down, and he would put it back up, and she would take it down, and he would put it back up. So I think she tried to avoid it, but she didn't really tell him to knock it off. But,
Did you ever see her stand up to him?
nothing stands out in my mind.
Did you ever see her be assertive to him and tell him directly to his face to stop it?
I think I remember her saying that a few times, but
How did that go?
he didn't listen to her.
And are your parents still married today?
Yes.
And has your mom stayed loyal to your dad?
Yes, they're very loyal to each other.
Were you ever aware of your parents ever involved with drugs?
Yes.
What was that?
When I was 4, I have a distinct memory of going into my parents' bedroom. I didn't know what it was at the time, but there was a mirror with white powder and a razor. So I realize now what that was, or probably was. And also when I was 5, my uncle, my dad's brother, got married, and my dad was in the wedding, I was in the wedding. He brought cocaine to the wedding as part of the party.
And other than that, did you have any other involvement? Did you know anything else about them using drugs?
I've learned since that my mom smoked pot on the day I was born, prior to giving birth to me. She may have done it more throughout her pregnancy, but I'm not aware of that.
That's something you more recently learned?
Yes.
That was something that she didn't want to share with you before?
Objection, speculation, lack of foundation.
Sustained.
That's something she didn't share with you before?
No.
Let's talk a little bit about Santa Maria then, okay? You said that you spent your middle school years there?
Yes.
And how were you adjusting in school, in a new school?
Well, 6th grade was still part of the elementary school. I adjusted. I made friends. And then I went to a new school for middle school, which was a little bit difficult because we moved that summer, so I went to a new school district. So it's right next door. I was close to my friends I'd made, but I had to make new friends again at school. But I did.
What kind of interests did you have when you were in middle school? Did you have any kind of things that were special to you?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I became interested in art very early on, so I took art class at school. When I was younger, I wanted to learn Spanish, so I couldn't wait to get to high school to take Spanish. But then in 8th grade, they offered it as an elective, so I was very excited to take that, so I did.
And so were those two things special to you?
They were.
And what kind of grades were you getting in middle school?
Mostly A's and B's for the most part till the last semester of 8th grade.
Was there a problem your last semester of 8th grade?
Yeah,
What was it?
there were a few problems.
Let's start with your family. What was your home like at that point?
Well, it wasn't as warm anymore. My little brother and sister were born. I was close with them, but my brother was doing his own thing. We weren't really hanging out anymore. My mom was working full-time. My dad was working full-time. I was babysitting a lot. If I wasn't
Jodi, who were you babysitting?
Oh, my little brother and sister.
Okay.
Yeah. And if they were home, the focus was on the babies. So we weren't really having dinner together anymore or hanging out or going to the movies as a family, things that we had done when I was little.
And so, could you tell a difference in your household as far as the way your family dynamic was working?
Could I tell the difference?
Yes.
Yes.
At the time you were a little girl.
Oh, yes. I could see a difference.
And was it getting any better than it was, or was it getting worse?
It wasn't getting better. It was kind of sliding as far as just general quality of our relationships, everyone in the family.
And what was going on as far as the discipline was concerned? Were your parents still disciplining you?
Yes,
And was your mom still hitting you?
she was.
And what about your dad?
He was still aggressive. He wasn't using the belt so much. He just began to shove me into furniture and scream and yell, things like that.
It continued screaming and yelling at you?
Yes.
Was your home something that was calm and serene, or was it more chaotic?
It was very chaotic. If no one was home, it was calm, but it was chaotic.
With your, we were talking about some of the problems by the end of 8th grade. So your family dynamic, that's what we were just talking about. Was there another problem?
I think so, yes.
Did you meet any friends? Did you have a particular friend who you think was helping you along with the problem?
Kind of, yeah. I met somebody, a girl that we were hanging out with, a few girls actually, and she introduced me to marijuana, so I started smoking that.
All right, and about how long did you do that for?
5 months in 8th grade.
Okay.
January through May, pretty much.
So that was the end of your semester that was the end of your 8th
Yes,
grade,
right, yes.
Okay. And were you able, did you stop on your own?
I did. Mm-hmm.
And did it, did you ever get arrested for that or anything like that?
No,
Did you ever have any kind of criminal charges or ever have to go to juvenile hall?
no.
In, after 8th grade, did you move again?
Yes.
Where did you guys move?
My entire family, the immediate family, we moved up north to Wairika.
Okay. And this is Wairika, California?
Yes.
Tell us where Wairika is in comparison to San Maria and Salinas.
Salinas is about 2 hours south of San Francisco, about 20 miles inland. Santa Maria, I don't know miles, but it's about 3.5 hours south of Salinas. And I think Santa Maria to Salinas is roughly 600-700 miles. It's 15 minutes from the Oregon border.
Wairika.
Wairika is, yes.
Santa Maria to Wairika is very far. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it's an all-day drive.
Okay. And did you mean to say that Wairika is 15 minutes from
Yeah,
the Oregon border?
that's what I meant to say if I didn't.
And when you say your entire immediate family, who is that?
My 3 younger siblings and my parents and myself.
And did anyone else live in Wairika at that time? Any other family?
Yes, almost all of my mom's immediate family, all of her siblings and her parents were either in Wairika or in the area.
Okay. And so in Wairika, did you start high school there?
Yes,
So you were starting into a new school?
yes.
And how did that go? What did you think of the high school there?
I liked the school. It was smaller. Well, at first, as a teenager, I hated being in Wairika. It was a small town. There wasn't a lot to do. But my mom went to high school there. My grandfather went to high school there. They all knew people. So a former friend of hers from high school had a daughter my age that was also going into her freshman year. So they introduced us. So I had a friend, and I met people.
I'm sorry. So you had somebody to kind of...
Right. A few people, yeah.
To know, right, when you got there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Tell me about your home life once you moved to Wairika. What was going on at home?
At home, it just seemed to slide even more. Home life was kind of dark. It was cold. We weren't hugging. We weren't saying I love you. We weren't really even talking.
What's the relationship between you and your mother at that point?
It was quite distant at that point. We didn't get along. I love her, of course. I love her, but it was painful because we just don't mix.
Did you see other friends with their moms?
Yeah, I did.
And Did some of your friends have good relationships with their mothers?
Yeah, some of them were like they were close, they were loving. I want to say like friends, but it was still a parental-child relationship, but they were close.
And how did that make you feel?
It was confusing to me because I would look at them and say, how can you guys get along like that? My mom and I don't get along at all. And so I look back on it now and I envy it, but at the time it was foreign when I would see that.
That type of relationship was foreign to you?
Yes.
And what about in, as far as working? So when you start high school, how old are you?
I am 15.
Okay. And are you working at this time?
Yes,
And actually, did you start working in Santa Maria when you lived in Santa Maria?
I did.
So let's go back for just a second.
Okay.
What did you do in Santa Maria?
I worked at my dad's restaurant. I was a hostess.
And how old were you when you started working for your dad?
I was either 13 or 14. I think I was 13. I think.
And did you do that the whole time? Once you started 13, did you keep working as a hostess?
No.
You moved to Wairika?
Yes, until I moved to Wairika, yes.
All right. And when you moved to Wairika, we were talking about your home life. What about jobs? Did you have a job in Wairika?
I did.
What did you do?
I also worked at my dad's restaurant.
Okay. And what did you do there?
When I started working at that restaurant, I was waiting tables.
Which restaurant was this?
It was called Claim Jumper's Family Restaurant.
Is that like a claim jumper, like a chain?
No, it's not part of the chain.
And is that something that your family owned?
Yes.
And what did you do? So you were getting paid, obviously.
Yes.
What did you do with that money?
I saved it, mostly. I mean, I bought little things here and there, but mostly I saved it up for a car. Sorry.
You were saving for a car?
Yes.
All right. In high school, what kinds of interests did you have? You told us about Spanish and art in middle school. What about high school? What were you doing then?
Well, those interests continued. I was interested in a lot of subjects. I think the only one I didn't like was math, but I liked school. I liked being in school. I liked the classroom. I liked the teachers, the students, the setting, the learning. But art and Spanish were my favorite subjects.
Did you have any particular teachers that made an impact on you?
Yes, my art teacher, Mr. Rangel, made an impact on me.
How did he do that?
He saw talent in me, and he recognized that, and he praised my art.
Was he supportive of you?
Yes.
Did he encourage you?
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm.
And were you getting any type of support or encouragement at home like that?
No, not that kind at all.
Did your parents support your love for art at this point? Did they do anything to help you?
Not at this point, no. Didn't.
What kind of grades were you getting in the beginning of high school?
In the beginning, I was getting A's and B's mostly. I wasn't 4.0, but I was in like the high 3 point whatever grade average.
And you said you enjoyed school?
I did. Yeah, I really liked school.
Was school different than when you went home from school every day? Was there a difference between your home and your school? The type of atmosphere?
Yeah, it was like night and day, really. I would go home and it was not a conducive environment for, say, doing homework or just having a place to study or be successful, that kind of thing. At school, we were all supported that way. As a student body, we were all supported in learning and just being successful. That's how the teachers are.
And at this point in high school, how were your mom and dad getting along? What did you see?
Kind of the same old thing. He would berate her, but he was also complimentary toward her. It's kind of like a strange paradox. If there was a pretty woman on TV and we were watching, he would say, well, she's not as pretty as your mom, in her presence when we were there. And then other times he would say things that were very degrading toward her.
And so this type of relationship between the two of them continued?
Yes.
And was your mom's reactions the same as before?
Yes.
What did she do?
Almost one of like a non-reaction, just kind of quiet, didn't really say anything much.
She didn't stand up to him?
No, she didn't.
And your dad at this time, let's talk about your dad for a second. Was he, in your mind, growing up with him, was he an imposing figure?
Yes, he was.
What way?
He was huge. He was a bodybuilder. He had huge biceps, huge shoulders. He was tall to me. He's 5'11", so he's tall but not really tall. But growing up, he seemed huge.
Right. And what kind of discipline was going on in your house during high school? Was your mom still hitting you with wooden spoons?
No, by that point, she had broken it, hitting my brother. So sometimes she'd smack me with a hairbrush. My brother got it with a wire hanger a few times. Sometimes she would use a belt.
At a certain point, were you getting old enough that you were trying to stop her?
Yeah, I was trying to. Well, there was a few times when I would try to grab her hands and prevent her from hitting me.
So was it kind of getting different then from when you were smaller, in the sense that you were able to try to do something about it?
Right. I mean, it was a bad idea because there would be repercussions. But you can't help it when you're being attacked. You just kind of grab,
What about, you told us about art. Were you still interested in Spanish?
Yes,
And did you take Spanish in high school?
I did.
And you said you were working for your dad.
Yes.
So when you get home from, were you taking care of Angela and Joey still?
I was occasionally, yeah. I would babysit.
And how did you do all of that? The school, work, and caring for your brother and sister?
Well, school was not the #1 priority in the house. More it was chores and, contributing. If I went to sleep at night without doing the dishes and it was my turn to do the dishes and I went to school without that, instead of being able to come home and do my schoolwork, I had to drop everything, go get that done first, and then if you want to do whatever you want to do, you can do that. But those kinds of, and maybe I was just slacking off as a teenager, but there wasn't a lot of encouragement as far as just focus on your school and do your work and that kind of thing.
Did you say there was not?
There was not. There was no emphasis there.
You said when you were working that you were saving money.
Yes.
Okay. What types of things did you save your money for? I know you told us a car.
Right.
Is that one of the things?
Yes,
Okay. Did you buy your own car?
I did.
And is that with all of your own money?
Yes.
And did you care for your car by yourself?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
I continued to work. At one point it broke down and my dad helped me. But mostly I paid the gas, I paid the insurance, I paid for the car itself. And I just continued working and making a little bit of money. It's a slow town, but that's how I did it.
What about, was there ever, in high school with your interest in Spanish, did you ever get to go anywhere with your Spanish class?
Yes.
Where?
We went to Costa Rica.
And how is it that happened?
Well, my sophomore year in September, at the beginning of the year, there were flyers advertising for an exchange program, and it was only a 3-week deal in the summer, so I saw that as something that I could do, so I decided I was going to do it.
You decided you were going to do it?
Yes.
Okay, and how is it that you did that?
I just came home. My parents were vegging on the couch, and I told them, I'm going to Costa Rica this next summer, and they just looked at me and didn't really argue.
Did they help you at all?
A little bit. Yeah, they did.
Okay. And did you save money for that?
Yes,
And did you pay for most of the trip yourself?
I did.
Is that something that the students had to do?
No one was paying for the students. It was them or their families that came up with the money to go.
And you said it was a 3-week trip?
Yes.
And when was this?
This would have been the summer 1997.
The summer 1997, you were 17, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I turned 17 in Costa Rica.
Oh, you turned 17, okay. And so, summer 17, so you're heading into your Junior year?
Yes.
Tell us then, at this point, is your family life getting any better?
No, it's getting worse.
And how is it getting worse?
My relationship with my dad was getting more hostile, I guess. He was getting a little bit, the discipline did not increase in frequency, but it increased in severity.
Tell me what you mean by it increased in severity.
He was yelling and angry, and I remember getting shoved into the piano. One time I was shoved into a door frame, and I hit my head on the side here, and I passed out.
Sorry, tell me what happened when you got hit into the door frame.
I lost consciousness briefly, and I slid down the wall. And,
Well, what was going on? Were you arguing with somebody?
oh, yeah. I was arguing with my mom. I don't remember why, but she started trying to hit me. I don't remember with what, but I grabbed her hands, and we had locked hands like this, and she was digging her acrylic nails into my skin, and it hurt, and my dad got involved. He got up, and that's
What did
when...
your dad do when he got, you said your dad got involved. What did he do?
He got up from the chair he was sitting in and came over, and somehow, I guess, he separated us and well, he didn't throw me, but he shoved me into the door frame.
And your head hit the door frame, is that what you remember?
Yes.
And what, you said you lost consciousness?
Yes.
What happened when you woke up or when you...
I'm sure it was brief, because the next thing I remember is I was sitting slumped on the floor, and my mom was holding my chin up and yelling at me.
What was your mom doing when she was holding your chin up?
She was continuing to yell at me, whatever she was yelling before. I don't remember what it was.
Did you hear her say anything to your dad?
Yeah, I did hear her say, "Be careful, Bill." I heard her say that.
How did that make you feel?
It was...
discipline, supposed discipline with your family.
I was stunned, because my dad had always disciplined me, but it seemed like it was reaching a level of dangerousness that it had never reached before. So it was, I don't know, it was just odd to me, because even though there had been a violent type of discipline in my house, it had never reached that kind of level.
How did it make you feel inside as far as the way your mom, were your mom and dad, and did your mom get upset with your dad for doing that?
She didn't really seem to. No, she...
How did that make you feel?
Well, it drives the wedge even farther between us. I felt more distanced than ever between my parents. Like, I just didn't feel like we were a family. We were a family, but we weren't acting that way. There were no warm feelings between us. There was no ill will, but like I said, there was no hugging, there was no "I love you." It just became worse and more distant and more cold, and just a little bit, it just felt darker in the house.
And did there come a point in time when, you said this was going into your junior year, right?
I was in my junior year when that occurred.
Okay.
I believe it was after the new year, I think.
After the new year.
Yeah.
Okay. So before the new year, the first semester, and the first 2 years of school in high school, what kind of grades were you getting? How were you doing?
I remember getting A's and B's, I think, yeah.
And was there a difference after that particular incident, in the middle of your junior year, was there a difference in your school years?
Yes.
What was the difference?
The grades began to slide. I was taking an advanced placement college class, so the workload was higher, but the home environment was no more conducive to that, and the relationship with my parents was sliding. I didn't have a relationship with my brother really anymore.
So you're talking about your brother Carl?
Yes, Carl. And it just became, my grades began to slide. I wasn't really making it.
After junior year, did you finish your junior year?
Not really. I finished, I guess, with D's and F's and almost no attendance toward the end.
And did you go back to school for your senior year?
No, I turned 18 that summer and just stayed in the workforce.
You just kept working?
Yes.
Now, at the time that, in your junior year, were you dating anybody?
Yes.
Who was it that you were dating?
When I first started my junior year, I was dating a guy named Victor. I broke up with him sometime in the fall, not too long.
Oh, let me take you back before.
Sure.
Victor is somebody you met in Costa Rica, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's let's go before that a little bit.
Okay.
Had you met somebody named Bobby Waters?
Yes.
Okay. And how old were you when you first met him?
15.
Did you date him for a little bit?
Not initially, we were just friends. But then eventually, like, I met him in the summer, and I think by the new year, or slightly after the new year, and sometime in January, we decided to be boyfriend-girlfriend.
And how old were you when that happened, when you decided to be boyfriend-girlfriend?
I was still 15.
And how old was Mr. Waters?
He was 18.
So was he in school with you?
No, he was out of high school.
And how long did that last?
I don't recall, but it didn't last till the end of the school year. It didn't last very long.
What happened?
He was getting very serious, and so I felt like it was just it was a little bit heavy. He was saying, "I love you," and he wanted to spend forever with me and that sort of thing. So it just seemed a little bit intense and serious, so I broke up with him.
So you broke up with him, is that what you said?
Yes.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Jodi, I'm showing you what's been marked in Exhibit 691 and 691. Do you recognize these?
I do.
Is one a family picture, one a picture of you and Ms. Waters?
Yes.
Judge, I move for the omission of 691 and 690.
Any objection?
Lack of foundation, dates.
Sustained.
And with regard to the family picture that I showed you, which is Exhibit 690, do you remember around what time that was taken, or how old you were?
If I could look at it one more time, yeah, I could probably let you know. It looks like it would have been like around 95.
Judge, she keeps trailing off and I'm having difficulty
I'm sorry.
hearing her. I'm wondering if perhaps she could fill the microphone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know the exact date, but I believe it was mid-90s is when that picture was taken.
Okay, are you a teenager in this picture?
Yes.
All right. Judge, I move for Exhibit 690.
Any objection?
No.
690 is admitted.
All right. So is this a picture of your immediate family
Yes.
when you're a teenager?
Yes.
And that's obviously you at the top?
Yes.
Is that your brother Carl to the left
Yes.
and your mom to the right?
Right.
And then Joey and
Angela.
Angela?
Yes.
And then obviously your dad.
Yes.
And this is at a time, you say you're an early teenager or a teenager at this point?
Yes.
All right, we were talking about when you first met Mr. Juarez and that you dated him just for a few months, right?
Initially, yes.
And then you said you went to Costa Rica in high school?
Yes. No. Right after. Well, yeah, in high school, but it was in the summer.
Right. The summer that you turned 17.
Yes.
Okay. So the summer that you turned 17, did you meet anybody when you went to Costa Rica?
Yes.
Who did you meet?
I stayed with a family there, an exchange family, and one of the family members was a guy named Victor. He was about my age.
What was Victor's last name?
The last name was Arias.
Okay, that there was any relation? No?
That's an Arias family, a different Arias family.
And from after meeting him in Costa Rica, were you dating him?
Yeah, you could
How
say
did that
that.
work? Because he lived in Costa Rica, right?
Right.
So how did that work?
Well, he and I hung out. We saw the tourist attractions in Costa Rica, and then I left. I think in July, and then he came to visit in the United States in August. He stayed in Redding, California, and then came to Wairika and stayed there for a few weeks. And then we just kept in touch, mostly via letters, but sometimes phone calls.
Okay, so you said you kept in touch mostly phone calls and letters.
Mostly letters and sometimes phone calls.
Okay.
Right.
And did you say he came to the U.S. once?
Yes. Once that I knew him. He's been here more than once.
But you saw him once in the U.S.?
Yes.
In other words, did he visit with you when he came into the U.S.?
Yes.
And at some point in time, did this relationship last very long?
I wouldn't say long, no.
Okay, what happened to it?
It got to a point where, I mean, he's a nice guy, he's good looking, but we argued a lot. He was he didn't like for me to talk to other people. How do I say it? He was kind of possessive, and it was just not my thing.
And at this point, were you only 17?
Yes.
And obviously the relationship broke up, right?
Right.
Who did the breaking up?
I broke up with him. I called him. Yeah, I called him and broke up with him.
Obviously that was over the phone then.
Yeah, it was over the phone.
And you're kind of wincing when you say that you called to break up with him. Was that something difficult for you?
Yeah, it just seems kind of messed up to break up with somebody on the phone. It's something I think because, I knew he loved me. It was difficult. I heard him crying on the other end of the line. And I felt like I at least owed it to him to break up with him to his face. But we're in different countries, so it wasn't really possible.
But was that something that you were still able to do? Break up with him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. And after you broke up with Victor Arias, did you end up meeting had you been friends with Ms. Arias after you guys broke up?
Yeah, we had reconnected and we were talking for a while at that point. We were friends.
Okay, so at the point that you were dating Victor, had you been friends with Ms. Arias?
Yes.
And Mr. Arias, where did he live?
He lived in Montague. It's a town outside of Wairika.
Okay, is it fairly close though to Wairika?
It's about 6 miles away. Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, did that friendship turn into dating again?
Yeah, several months later it did.
Several months from when?
From the time, I guess, that I broke up with Victor.
Okay.
Right.
Do you remember time-wise when that was?
I don't remember exactly the date that I broke up with Victor, but it was in the fall, and Bobby and I began dating again on the 1st of the new year.
So when we're talking about fall and 1st of the new year, is that the 1st of the new year, is that in the middle of your junior year?
Yes, that would be, 1998.
Okay. All right, so you begin dating Ms. Juarez again at the time that we've discussed how your family life and your grades start to slide.
Yes.
All at the same time?
Right. All in this. A lot was going on that year.
Okay. And you remember I showed you the exhibit number 691, a picture of you and Ms. Juarez? About when was that taken?
I think I was 19 when that was taken, so probably 1999, but I may have been 18.
Okay.
I may have been, yeah.
Was it taken sometime after you started dating again?
Yes.
Judge, I move for the admission of 691.
Any objection?
No.
691 is admitted.
Okay, is that a picture of you and Mr. Juarez?
Yes.
At the time that things were happening in your house, when we talked about your junior year and how things started to slide, was there a certain point in time when you decided that you had had enough?
At home, yes.
Yes, at home.
Right. There was.
What happened?
Well, things had gotten just to a point where I didn't want to live there anymore. Bobby and I began making plans for me to move in with him and his parents/grandparents. So I
When you say parents/grandparents, what do you mean?
They were an elderly couple. I believe they were his grandparents, like biologically, but he called them mom and dad.
Okay. And so you and Bobby started making plans for you to move in with him?
Yes.
And you're still in high school at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And so how did you effectuate those plans? What were you doing?
Well, little by little, I just began to pack up some things that I had, and whenever I was just visiting, I would take them over to his house, and he had a shed in the back, and we would put all my things in there. I had dishes and things that my dad had given me when he closed his restaurant that year. So just household stuff that I had. So I began moving that, my books, things like that.
And at this point in time, this is your end of your junior year, right?
Yes.
Are you still working?
I am, yes.
Where are you working?
Well, if I wasn't still working at my dad's restaurant, I began to work restaurants was my thing then. So I worked at a restaurant either called Grandma's House as a hostess or the Purple Plum as a busser, or maybe it was both. Can't remember. It was all in that similar time frame.
At the same time?
Right.
Okay. And so you were obviously earning money then?
Yes.
So what happened then? At some point, do you actually leave your house?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, at that point, I stayed up all night packing, and
Tell me what point this is.
This is 3 months before I was 18.
So you would have turned 18 in July of 1988?
1998. Yeah, 98. I would have turned 18 that July. So this would have been roughly April, I
Okay.
think. It was sometime in the spring. I packed up all my things all night long, and then I picked up my cat and walked out the door about 7 o'clock in the morning and drove out to his house, dropped everything off, and then I went
When
to
you
school.
when you walked out the door, were your parents there?
My mom was in the kitchen.
Did anybody say anything?
Yeah, you can see the front door from the kitchen, and she saw me with my cat, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I just said, "Nothing." And I just shut the door, and I took off in my car. And then I called.
And you went over to Bobby's?
Yes.
Did you call your mom later?
I called her when I got there that morning, just so that they were aware of what I was doing at that point.
All right, and is that when you told them that you were moving out?
Yes.
Did they do anything to stop you?
No.
Did they come over to Bobby's house and pack your things up and make you take you back?
No.
Did they try and convince you to come back?
Not to come back, no.
And after you moved your stuff into Bobby's house, grandparents' house, did you go to school?
I did that day. Mhm.
And is that's the end of your junior year? Or the beginning of the end of your junior year, right?
Pretty much. Well, things were already getting difficult, but I think that was sort of a turning point where things really began to go south, where I couldn't salvage my grades anymore at that point.
Okay. During this time when you lived with Bobby, that's when you think you were working at a couple of different places?
Yes.
And what about Bobby? Was he working?
No, he had never had a job.
And so where was your money going?
Well, eventually it was going to him and I. We were living, it was kind of a 50-50 deal.
To support him?
Yeah, food, clothes, that kind of thing.
All right. And but you guys had a house to live in?
We did.
Can you describe for us the house? What was the house like that you moved into?
Well, you could sort of see it in this picture. It was not in very good shape. It was very dirty.
I'm sorry, it was what?
Dirty. The front room had, I think it's like cigarette tar, like running down the walls in brown. There was a lot of dusty junk piled up everywhere. The carpet was like threadbare. The kitchen linoleum was all peeling off. It was just really in bad shape.
But yet, did you stay there?
I did.
And what was the relationship like with Bobby?
It was all right, I thought.
You thought?
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't a lot of drama or anything like that. We got along. I don't know. It was all right.
Was there a certain point in time when you broke up?
Yes.
About when did that happen?
I think that was in May I broke up with him.
May of 1998?
Yes.
All right. What happened that you broke up with him?
I found out he was cheating on me, so I broke up with him.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry. I found out that he was seeing someone else, so I broke up with him.
And how did you find that out?
Well, he had been talking with this woman for a while on the phone. She was out of state, but they spoke very frequently. My understanding was that he had had an interest in her previously, but they were just friends now.
Are these things that he would tell you?
Yes. So I saw them talk, and friendship is fine. So I didn't think much about it, but I just kind of had a weird feeling. So we would go to the public library to check our emails.
And let me stop you there. So back in that day, this is 1998.
Right.
Did you have a computer in the house?
No computer, no cell phone, nothing like that.
All right. And so you had email?
Yes.
And so you said you had to check your email at the public library?
Right.
And did you both go and do that?
Right.
Okay. And so what happened?
Well, we would go to the, sometimes we'd just each use the terminal, or if the terminals were being used, we'd each just take turns using the same terminal, and we would just check our emails right in front of each other. So it didn't seem like he was hiding anything. And I would see emails in his inbox from her.
Wait, you'd see emails in his inbox from who?
From this woman.
This woman that he was supposedly just friends with?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. I never read any of them. He never read any in front of me. But just the way he spoke to her seemed a little bit more than just friends.
How did you hear him speak to her?
He was very sweet to her. He laughed a lot.
But how is it that you would hear him?
He would speak on the phone when I was home. So it seemed like when they were on the phone, it was just like his own world. You could just tell, he seemed to kind of tune everything out. Not in a bad way, more like in a way that you could see that someone had feelings for somebody, maybe almost an in love kind of feeling.
And how did that make you feel?
It was uncomfortable. I mean, I took his word for it at first, but it was uncomfortable.
And so what happened during the time that you broke up?
Well, the day we checked our emails, I was headed to the Purple Plum to work, and before going there, I dropped him off at his friend's so he could hang out there. He didn't have a car. Sorry.
Jodi, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What's the Purple Plum?
Oh, the Purple Plum, I'm sorry. That's the restaurant I was working at that time.
So you were headed to the Purple Plum to work, and you were dropping Bobby out where?
At his friend's house.
Okay.
Yes.
And so what happened?
Well, my feeling was very strong by that point, so I decided I wanted to check. So I went back to the library and I checked the emails that he had been writing her, or was it him? Yeah, the ones he had sent her, and I could they were very loving. They were more than friends, clearly. So
What did you do?
I printed them all out and I drove to the house we were living in. I packed up all my things, threw them in my trunk, asked my grandma if I could stay with her. She said yes, and then I called in sick for work because I was sad, I was upset. And then I drove back to the friend's house where Bobby was, and I pulled him aside so we could talk privately, and I handed him the letters and showed him.
So when you pulled him aside to talk privately, did you yell at him?
No, I didn't say anything. I just handed him to him.
You didn't say anything to him?
No.
You just handed him the letters?
Right.
Okay, and what was his reaction?
He seemed very shocked. He asked if she had sent them to me.
He thought that she told on him?
Yeah, that was his first.
Speculation. Like a foundation, huh?
Sustained.
He asked you if she sent them to you?
Yeah, that was
Objection
his,
leading.
Overruled.
that was his first question.
All right, and so what happened between the two of you at that point?
He wanted to leave the house. He said, let's go somewhere so that we can talk. We drove back to his house, and we just, I don't know,
Okay. Let me ask you this. How did you feel when you discovered that he was cheating?
I felt awful. It was very hurtful. I felt deceived, of course, and I just felt really hurt. He was very sweet and loving toward her. He treated her, I thought, better than he was treating me.
And at this point in time, had you been dating him for approximately how long?
I think at that point it would have been roughly 5 months, maybe 4.
And you were living with him?
Yes.
So when you go back to his house, does he notice that all of your things
Yeah, he saw the closet area where all my clothes were hanging were empty, and some of my belongings were just out of their spaces.
and how did that go?
He got upset. He said it made him sick to his stomach to see that I had moved everything out. He felt really bad. He apologized.
Still move out?
I can't remember if I stayed at my grandma's or if my grandma's for like 1 or 2 nights, but I did move out, but I was right back in the house again.
How is it that you landed right back in the house again, moving in with him again?
He promised that he would not talk to her anymore. There was nothing going on between them. He cared about me. He loved me. He won't talk to her, that sort of thing. So he was very apologetic, and I believed he was sincere.
And did you accept his apologies then?
Yes,
Did you believe his apologies?
I did. Mm-hmm.
And so when you moved back in, what was your relationship like after that?
At that point, it wasn't that great. I mean, it just seemed to get emotionally more chaotic. Like there was turmoil as far as that goes.
Turmoil between the two of you?
Yeah, emotionally, like he was a little bit more upset all the time. I can't really describe it. He would kind of played mind games, I guess you could say it like that.
Was your relationship rocky after that?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't super rocky, but it got rockier as time went on.
Okay. And what, when you stayed with him, after you came back, why did you do that?
Why did I continue to stay?
Right.
Well, I loved him. In fact, I was in love with him, and he told me he loved me. So we are two people that love each other. We're young, but we love each other. So I figured we can work through our problems. That was how I thought.
And is that what you were trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Now, at this point in time, where are you working?
I believe I was still at the Purple Plum.
Okay. And were you serving there?
No, I was bussing tables. I wasn't 18 yet, so I couldn't wait tables.
Okay. And what about Bobby? Was he working yet?
No, he didn't have a job.
So was your money still going to support the two of you?
Yes.
Is there a point in time when you broke up with him again?
There were several times where we broke up and then made up and broke up and got back together. So yeah.
And did you maintain your job at the Purple Plum?
No, at one point I decided to move to Chico, California, which is just north of Sacramento. That didn't work out, so I was right back. At that time,
Tell us what was happening between you and Bobby when you moved to Chico.
Okay. Bobby and I don't remember exact timelines, but somehow he decided again that he wanted to try to work things out with this other girl. So she bought a Greyhound ticket and came into town and stayed with him, and I was out of there. So I left.
You had moved out?
Oh yeah, I moved out before she got there.
Okay.
And I went to Chico. I stayed with some friends there to see if that was where I wanted to live and maybe get an apartment and work. I came back to Wairika briefly for more of my stuff or to visit family. I can't remember, but I was only gone about 4 days and I came back. And let's see, I don't remember how Bobby and I reconnected, but we went to Carl's Jr. and he takes my hands and says, "I just know things are going to work out between us." And that was very shocking to me because I thought he was trying to be with this other girl.
So did you see a pattern with him as far as when he wanted you and when he didn't want you?
Yeah, I did.
Well, what did you see? And I should ask you this. When is it that you saw this pattern? Did you see it when you were involved with him or later?
Well, looking back, I see that it was a pattern almost from the beginning, but I didn't notice it until later. Later on in the relationship. It seemed like when he had somebody there to provide for him, he didn't need me or want me. But when somebody wasn't there and he needed food or he needed clothes, he was trying to make the relationship work.
And when he tried to make the relationship work, is that something that you went along with?
Yes, I did.
And you said that you broke up and got back together several different times?
Right.
Was there a time when you broke up with him completely?
Yes.
And approximately when is this?
This was late 1999.
So late 1999, you would have been 19?
Yes.
And is that close in time, do you think, when this picture is?
Probably. That could have easily been in 1999.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're not sure?
I'm not 100% sure if it was 98 or 99.
Okay. And what happened? Where were you working at that point?
I was at Denny's. I began to work at Denny's in August 1998.
Okay.
I believe it was August.
All right. And Denny's where?
In Wairika.
And what were you doing?
I was waiting tables.
Okay. So now you were 18.
Right.
Okay. And you said in August of 1998, that's when you started working at Denny's?
Yes.
And were you making pretty decent money there?
I thought it was, yeah. It was the most I had been making since I began to work in that field.
And again, where was your money going?
Living expenses. I had a few bills now. I got a little credit card to build up my credit. Gas, insurance, food, clothes.
Still have your own car?
Yes. And that was constantly needing repair. It was a junker, kind of.
And at this point in time, are you still living with Bobby?
Yes.
Is there a certain point when you move out from him?
Yes, about a year later. We were together roughly close to 2 years. And then I think it was late 1999, we were no longer living together.
Okay. And when you were no longer living together, is that when you're still working at Denny's?
Yes, I was still working at Denny's till late 1999 also.
So what happens? Around this time, is there a breakup?
Yes.
What happens?
There was a breakup, and at Denny's, I built up vacation time, so I decided to use that, and I went back to Costa Rica to heal from this breakup and just get away from everything. And so I spent 8 days there with the family. Victor had moved out and moved on. He was doing other things. So I was with the family and just hanging out and trying to just heal. We'd go to the beach, you know.
Let me ask
Sorry.
You said a lot in that. So you were working at Denny's and you were able to save money to go to Costa Rica?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that, where was Victor Arias at this point?
He had moved out and gotten his own apartment.
Okay. So were you going to visit him?
No, I was going to see the family, my exchange family.
Your exchange family.
Right.
All right. And did you go to kind of clear your head?
Yes.
And what were you thinking about? When you say clear your head, what were you thinking about?
Well, there was a lot of pain from the relationship and things we've been through, so it was just kind of processing. It was meditative in a way, because there wasn't a whole lot of activity. Like when I was 17, we went to all the tourist spots. It was more educational. This was more just relaxing.
So what happened? So do you come back from Costa Rica?
Yes.
And did you make a decision about your relationship with Bob?
Yeah, well, we were broken up. So yeah, that was...
And did you intend to keep it that way?
Yes, I had not planned to contact him.
Okay. And what happened?
I came back to work at Denny's where I was working, and I was just working my shift. I went in the back for something. I came back out. There's counters in the front, right where the swinging door is from the back. And when I came out, he was sitting right on the first seat there, like with this puppy dog look on his face, like his head in his hands kind of thing.
And was he just waiting for you?
Yeah.
And did you end up speaking with him?
Yeah.
And how did that conversation go?
It was emotional. I was coming up on my break, so we waited, and then we left the building. We went outside to the parking lot to my car to talk, and there were tears, and he missed me, and I missed him, I guess. And so we ended up, I don't know that we actually got back together, but because this was very much toward the end, but we continued to see each other.
And at this point in time, where were you living?
I believe I was with my grandma's at that point. Yeah, I think I was living with my grandma.
Other than this back and forth with you and Bobby, was there ever a point in time when he was actually physical with you?
Yes, one time.
And as far as when we're talking timeline, when does that happen?
This was also late 1999. I don't recall the exact month, but it might have been around October. And I was at my friend's house. I forgot I was living at this girl's house, just staying there. I stayed there a few months before I moved with my grandmother. And so at this point, I'm at her house, and this is in Montague as well. And he was over visiting. There was no one else home, just him and I. We got into an argument. I don't remember about what.
And what happened in the argument?
The argument,
Was he yelling?
He was yelling. He was very dramatic. He's very emotionally deep. So he was just being himself, and we were arguing. And he approached me, and he spun me around, and he got me into a chokehold.
He had his arm around your throat?
I think both arms. I don't really know how to do a chokehold, but he does. And so he did that.
Why does he know how to do a chokehold?
He was in martial arts and that sort of thing.
Okay. So you said he came up to you, he spun you around?
Yes, he just took my shoulders, spun me around, so my back was to him.
And what were you expecting? Do you remember, do you have a memory of what you thought was going to happen when he spun you around?
Yeah, I mean, we had made up after arguments before, and he was nice, and he had never been physical with me before, so I was thinking he was going to hug me or something, and instead he choked me.
What happened when he choked you? Do you remember it?
Yeah, he squeezed really hard, and then he let go, and I fell to my knees, very, very lightheaded. I almost passed out, but I didn't.
What was going through your head at that point?
I was kind of mad. I thought, you just choked me. Like, I was a little bit mad. I was stunned. He had never done that before, so I turned around and followed him out to the living room and said something. I don't remember what I said, something to the effect of my family would be very upset if they knew what you just did. It wasn't that, but it was to that essence. And
so let me ask you this. He just choked you, and you followed him out?
Well, we were in this house, and I mean, the living room's right outside the bedroom, so, you know. He went to the living room, and then I went to the living room.
All right, and so then what happened?
At that point, he approached me again, and he got me into some kind of hold. I don't recall, like, how it was, but it was, he had my arm, and he was placing pressure on my forearm, and it seemed like his intention was to break it.
Because of the pressure that he was placing?
Right. The way he was holding it, the way he was putting the pressure on it.
And at this point in time, do you remember what was going on through your head?
Well, the phone was like not 5 or 6 feet away, so that was my intention.
What did you do?
I somehow squirmed over to the phone and managed to grab it. We were both trying to grab it, but I grabbed it and I turned it on and I called 911. And
Is it a cell phone or a home phone?
It's a portable home phone.
Okay.
Yeah. He grabbed the phone from me and hung it up.
Did anyone call back?
Yeah, he was telling me to shut up because at that point I was crying. He kept telling me to shut up because they're going to call back. So a few seconds later, minute maybe, not even a minute, the phone rang, he answered, and he talked to the operator and told her everything was fine. It was just a mistake.
Do you know if the police ever showed up?
I don't. I mean, we left.
I was going to say, why don't you know?
Yeah, we left. We were leaving. He didn't have a ride, so I took him wherever he needed to go.
So after all this, you took him, you didn't just leave him?
You know, I don't know actually if at that time, if I know I left and we both left. I'm sorry. He may have walked away or he may have gotten in my car with me. I don't remember.
But did you stay at the house?
No, not that time.
And you said this was a friend's house that you had just been staying at briefly?
Right.
Did you have any idea what the address was?
No, I didn't get any mail there.
And after you were arrested and this case is pending, did you have any idea what that address was?
No, I mean, I could drive to the house. I know where it is, but I don't know the address.
You didn't know how to have you didn't have the actual physical address of it, right?
No, I don't.
After this happens with Bobby, did you tell anybody?
Yes, I did.
Who did you tell?
I told my parents.
Okay. And anybody else?
Um,
Well, after you told your parents, did anybody else find out?
yes.
Who?
I guess they told my brother, Carl.
Why do you guess that?
Because he got a little gang of his friends, and they went over to Bobby's house and confronted him.
Carl and a little gang of his friends. Was one of his friends named Kellen?
Yes,
And did you know Kellen?
I did. Not very well, but I knew he was a friend of my brother's.
And is Kellen somebody, was he in high school?
Right, he was a grade a grade below mine and my brother. My brother was only 1 grade below me, so they were in the same grade.
And so your brother Carl and Kellen, and were there other boys involved that you knew of?
There were other boys involved, to my understanding.
Okay, and what did they do?
Objection like a foundation, to my understanding. How does she know?
Faint.
What did they do?
They went to...
The same objection, foundation.
Which her answer was not in relation to that question.
Overruled. You may answer.
Okay, they went to Bobby's house.
Objection, foundation. They went to Bobby's house.
Sustained.
There's no reproach?
Yes, you may. Actually, we're going to take the afternoon recess. Please be back in the designated area at 10 minutes after 3. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
All rise for the jury.
It'll show the jury's left the courtroom. We don't have to do that at this point. There's no one else who can hear. So the objection was foundation?
Right, she's narrating something. I don't know how she knows.
Correct.
Oh, I can ask her how she knows.
Yes.
That's fine.
All right. Let's take up the issue of the transcript of the hearing conducted in chambers. The attorney for the press has requested it. I'm thinking about it. My suggestion is that I enter an order that the transcript be prepared under seal and provided directly to the Court of Appeals in the event there is a special action filed. So it would not go to anyone other than to the Court of Appeals.
Well, I think that this involves a third party, we should probably be heard on that issue. But if that is the ruling that goes to the Court of Appeals, someone should perhaps tell their lawyer that's where it is.
Right. I told the lawyer for the media that I needed to speak with you to get any objection to providing the transcript.
No, I have no objection to the transcript being provided.
Not to the Court of Appeals, obviously our concern is it getting out into the media in any way, shape, or form. So the attorneys for KPNS instructed us also under seal for only being created for the limited purposes of a special action.
Okay, so Randy, you want to go out and see if the attorney is still out in the hallway? Yes.
Judge, may Ms. Arias step down?
Yes, you may step down. All right, so I'll ask court staff to contact the attorney and give him an opportunity if he wants to be present. Otherwise, we'll tell him that the intention is that we will provide a sealed transcript directly to the Court of Appeals. If he wants to be heard on that issue, he can come down and we'll have a hearing on Monday. Okay, we're at recess.
Judge, for how long? Is it 3:15?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Sure.